We are going to be looking at some creepy videos, strange and odd news stories, and as always, let's go ahead and get right into today's video. So every so often, I like to make a poll asking you as the subscriber, what would you like to see me talk about for a Sunday video? And in my most recent poll, not to my surprise, a majority of you had chosen conspiracy theories. This doesn't shock me because we are now living in a time where things that were once considered to be quote-unquote conspiracy theories are coming to fruition, and the so-called powers that be, news and media, they are having a much harder time trying to sweep things under the rug. When they release their bots, their NPCs, their fact checkers, people are no longer buying what they're trying to sell. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and check out some videos that may leave us with some questions. This first creepy video comes from Ronspiracies. Now, most of us, a majority of us, should be familiar with the whole gated pizza incident, but did you know over in Russia, they have a very questionable pizza place?
Did you know that there was a restaurant called Obama Pizza? And I mean like an actual restaurant. I feel like the word pizza already has a negative connotation around it, and then you stick Obama's name in front of it, doesn't make it any better. Then they literally have an Illuminati symbol right on the logo. On the inside, it looks like a pretty normal restaurant besides the checkerboard symbolism everywhere. And I mean everywhere. The question I still have is, why Obama and why pizza? Do the Russians know something that we don't? I'm gonna show y'all basically what the restaurant is, and y'all let me know what y'all think down below.
Scott Thuman was on assignment for us in Kaliningrad, Russia, when he came across a strange place to grab a slice.
Late at night in a foreign land and fending off hunger pangs, a pizza pie can seem like a godsend. And here in Kaliningrad, Russia, a spot rarely visited by any Westerners, we stumbled upon a story while scouring for food. This is Obama Pizza. Why Obama Pizza in Kaliningrad?
Никак это с политикой не связано.
This word sounds funny, let's say, and it was very popular in 2013 when they opened this cafe and they decided to use this word.
It may seem odd, the Russian storefronts with Cyrillic signs broken up by the name of an American president. And let's be honest, it is. After all, a picture of Vladimir Putin hangs proudly on the wall here. And locals tell us there's a running joke these days in Russia. If anything is wrong, just blame Obama. Though nothing wrong with this food. So will the signs soon be replaced now that he has two?
So now that there's President Trump, will you change the name?
Нет, не планирую.
No plans.
Do you like Donald Trump?
Ну, как сказал.
As our president Putin told that he's a bright personality, we'll see, we have no idea about him.
This whole pizza place screams like they're trying to relay a message. Not only is it the fact that we always have Hollywood, these celebrities talking about pizza, and we know what that's code for, but we have the free people symbolism all over this place. We have the checkerboard, we have the all-seeing eye, we have the pyramid. This pizza place gives off a very eerie vibe. Now, I can see if it was over here in the US, one of the arguments could be made that they're just trying to capitalize off of certain conspiracy theories that are spoken about here in the United States. But given the fact that it's over in Russia, in some random place with not a big population, again, that's very creepy. I just feel like there's something deeper going on here than just them making and selling food.
So how big of a conspiracy theorist are you? I'll go first. Donald Trump and Elon Musk wanted to see the gold in Fort Knox. And then the American people wanted to see the gold in Fort Knox. And then Elon Musk and Trump had a breakup. And then Elon quit his job with Doge. And then the Epstein files resurfaced. And then they sunk again. And then Obama has been accused of treason, the highest crime in the land, even worse than murder. But he hasn't been arrested yet. But meanwhile, if you go down to Walmart and you self-check out a 52-inch TV for the price of bread, they will arrest you with a private police force before you even leave the store. But through all of these twists and turns, you weren't asking to see or even thinking about the gold in Fort Knox. And that's how they get you. So how big of a conspiracy?
That great video comes from the real Matt the Welder, and let's be honest, there is no gold in Fort Knox. There hasn't been for quite some time, if there ever was. Reading this news article right here, it says, if a full audit revealed that some of the United States gold reserves were missing or unaccounted for, the consequences could be severe. Domestically, it would trigger a crisis of confidence in federal institutions and possibly spark political upheaval. The US dollar, backed in part by trust in national reserves, could face downward pressure, especially in global markets already uneasy about debt and inflation. Internationally, rival nations might exploit the news to question America's economic credibility. But here's what they did, and here's how they're slick. While they have our attention focused on this whole Jeffrey stuff, which is indeed very real, the trafficking, the client lists, and so forth, the distraction comes in the form of them investigating, them releasing names, them bringing people down, arresting people. They knew they never intended to do so, but they're using our anger and our focus when it comes to the lack of information to do certain things, and one of those things happens to be the Genius Act, which ties the dollar to digital currency. So when the dollar crashes and cash is no longer of value, well, now we have government-backed digital currencies, and we're now all going to be using the digital dollar where it's controlled by the government. There's no more privacy that cash would offer. They suddenly became extremely quiet when it came to the topic of Fort Knox, which really raises my suspicions. And I'm sure they were waiting for something like this to pass before they release any information about Fort Knox. So now if they do release that information and the dollar crashes, so what? We now have stable coins that hold their value no matter what. And the government, they now have complete control over everybody's digital wallet. You didn't go ahead and get your jab because something's spreading? Well, we're going to go ahead and turn your wallet off until you do. You're spreading misinformation online? We're going to go ahead and turn your wallet off. Everybody's going to be on their best behavior, like Larry Ellison said. In this next creepy video that was taken all the way back in 2005, the question happens to be, what were they preparing for? Were they preparing for the C-19, or were they preparing for something else altogether that we have not seen yet?
I talked with Dale Bohannon, whom I've known since, I guess, the mid-1980s. And he told me something very interesting that he found back in the fall of 2000 while he was on a business trip. Listen to this, folks.
I was pulled to the side road, which was a new cut gravel dirt road in front of a business, a builder supply business, actually Top-Notch Builder Supply in Madison, Georgia. To my right, this was previously was a soybean field, and this little new cut road divided this field, and the right side of the road was filled with which I thought was portable toilets. I never looked at them that close. Same in color, maybe black, but which was an odd color. And I was sitting there going over my notes, and a van pulled alongside of me that turned out to be the property owner. And he greeted me, and he was by himself, and so we had a good little dialogue there, and I asked him about the field of black boxes. What were they? Because I'd never seen anything like that, and his statement was that if he told me, I would be one of few people in Madison, Georgia that knew about them. And he says they're disposable coffins, I believe he told me. And he says there's 100, at that time, he said there was 125,000 there. And they were stacked, he told me, 15 high. I asked him who owned them, and he stated that the CDC owned them and that they were leasing his land for storage. And he said his brother worked with the CDC in Atlanta and had been asked by the CDC to do a 3-year extension to place temporary morgues all across the nation.
So in January of this year, 2005, we decided to drive to beautiful Madison, Georgia, and take a look for ourselves. It was on a Sunday and no one was around, with the exception of this one pickup truck that was coming out the narrow road that we were going in on next to this field. We flagged down the pickup truck, And it was providential that the driver of this pickup truck turned out to be the son of the man that owned this field. So naturally, we started asking him questions. And he told us that not long ago, there had been as many as 500,000 of these grave liners or disposable coffins. We asked him for permission if we could look around, and he said yes, so we did.
We're just getting an idea for the size of these boxes. What could these boxes be used for? Well, they're called casket liners. And that's an interesting term, isn't it? It's a casket liner. When I first heard the term casket liner, I thought perhaps a lining for a casket. But this is too big to be on the inside of a casket. So certainly this could be used as a casket. This is an inexpensive casket. And you can see the size here. There's lots of room. I think my friends here, we could all probably get inside, and it might be a little cozy, but we'd fit just fine. Which tells me that these liners can be used for more than just one. And one more time, what kind of liners are these?
Casket liners.
These are casket liners.
That's what the man said.
That's what the man told us. And we're told that there were about 500,000 out here.
So researching this further online, I found this article right here where even Snopes had gotten involved. And this article continues to say from SpectatorNews.com, in 2008, at the beginning of the Obama administration, rumors began circulating about a strange scene found in a field just off the highway in Madison, Georgia. According to Snopes, the Federal Emergency Management Agency was preparing for a potential revolt by building internment camps called FEMA camps and stockpiling 500,000 plastic coffins. Continuing to read this further, it says Obama allegedly ordered $1 billion of cheap coffins, storing them in a nondescript field in Georgia. Aerial shots show stacks upon stacks of coffins amid the trees, and theorists believe this is part of a countrywide effort to combat a future American revolt. Snopes reported Obama has been operating behind the scenes to prepare action in case of an American revolt that will not only quash a revolution, but end the lives of many of its participants. They were also quoted as saying, during the course of the revolt, many will lose their lives both in battle and in camps, an inevitable circumstance Obama is already preparing for. This was the rumor, and of course, as always, Snopes goes ahead and debunks it. It says, although Snopes debunks this theory by explaining the plastic coffins have been stored on leased land by their manufacturers since the 1990s, Alt News says these coffins are connected with 800 concentration camps throughout the country. In this case, should martial law be implemented, illegal aliens or revolutionaries will be rounded up and held in these detention centers by FEMA. Alt News says this can be done with signatures from the president and the attorney general. Now, of course, something like this did not happen during the Obama administration, but maybe it was. Maybe we were heading there. They were going to release some kind of news or something that was going to upset a lot of people and start this mass protest. And given the fact that the video clip I played showing the coffins took place in the early 2000s before Obama became president, then perhaps every administration has something like this as a backup plan in case a mass revolutionary protest does break out and they have to release these FEMA camps. Something both Bush administrations had access to, the Clinton administration, the Obama administration, the Biden, Trump, and so forth. Yes, Snopes says that these were on leased land by the manufacturers since the 1990s, and that may be true, but they never state what the purpose of these were for. In this next creepy video, there are a lot of suspicions to be had when it comes to these tech giants. These tech giants are very strange, like Peter Thiel, Mark Zuckerberg, and so forth. But here is a creepy story involving Sam Altman, the founder of OpenAI. This video comes from James Lee.
This photo is not at all what it seems. You might recognize this face, billionaire Sam Altman, the head of OpenAI and ChatGPT, and this is his sister, Annie. They look super happy here, but something horrible was going on in the background. Because back in January, Annie drops a bombshell lawsuit against Sam, alleging some of the most heinous crimes you could possibly imagine. This is how the news is reporting it, but if you read the descriptions in the actual lawsuit, It's sickening. Like, I don't know how to talk about this without the video getting taken down. So maybe just pause to read. But the news is very much just kind of dismissing her claims. This is what the New York Times wrote, quote, Miss Altman had mental health challenges and refuses conventional treatment and lashes out at family members who are genuinely trying to help. I mean, I don't know about you, but I would definitely have a few mental health issues if that same thing happened to me. But here's where the story gets even darker. In May of 2018, Annie and Sam's father passes away tragically of a heart attack. And Annie was very close with her father. But then the entire family, after her father passed away, hid the will from her, and she had no idea this was happening until her father's 401k company notified that she was his primary beneficiary. Then, when she was trying to file the paperwork, Annie discovered that her mother, Connie, was still legally married to her father, Jerry, even though they had been separated, and she apparently used the surviving spouse option to override his will, which blocked Annie from getting any of the money. This is some messed up stuff. Annie then suffers from a series of health issues and is unable to work and basically runs out of money. And when she asks her family for help, they either tell her outright no, as you can see here in this text exchange, or they tell her that in order for them to help her, she's got to go on meds or whatever other condition they stipulate, which she doesn't want to do. Then she's forced into doing SW in order to make ends meet. She would later go on to say, quote, I survived sickness because of survival SW. Escorting, I'm not at all glad that it happened, but I am grateful. Now back to her allegations against her brother Sam, November 13th, 2021 is the first time that she posts about it publicly. November 30th, 2022, OpenAI launches ChatGPT to instant success. Sam Altman then becomes a household name, the Oppenheimer of our age, as he's called in New York Magazine. Meanwhile, Annie is a ghost. For the longest time, ChatGPT did not even recognize her existence because we have to remember ChatGPT is basically a scraper of the internet. So if he never talks about her, she doesn't exist. September 24th, 2023, Sam sends this email to Annie apologizing and asking for forgiveness for something. Pause to read. On January 7th, Sam, along with all of his siblings and his mother, respond publicly to her essay allegations, saying, quote, all of these claims are untrue. The situation causes immense pain to our entire family. Look, I don't know what's true and what isn't true. Nobody really does, other than Sam and Annie. But what I will say is that it's easy to dismiss these allegations because it's the most convenient thing to do. Like it or not, Sam is one of the most powerful people in the world. Annie is the quote-unquote crazy sister, so who do you think the media is going to believe? But maybe more importantly, who do you believe?
When it comes to Sam Altman and people like him, I really want to put such evils behind them because at the end of the day, they really do not have humanity's interests as a whole. I mean, they're behind these AI programs and updating them, and then they go on to say things like, and I'm reading this article from Yahoo News, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman warns AI will wipe entire job categories off the map, yet you are behind such programs. And if these allegations are true, which again, I don't doubt it, it's really scary to know that he was allowed to adopt a baby. But I find Peter Thiel, one of the CEOs of Palantir, to be just as suspicious as Sam Altman, the same Peter Thiel who had a hard time answering the question whether humanity should endure or not. He had or has a very interesting company called Ambrosia, which is all about taking the blood from young people, young adults, blood harvesting, and putting it into older individuals to give them a more youthful appearance. But Peter Thiel, his connections run very deep, and he also has a very interesting name. This video comes from WFF News.
This is wild. Peter Thiel's name is an anagram for the reptile, meaning that if you take the letters in his name and scramble them around, they spell out the reptile. This is crazy because there's a long-standing conspiracy theory that there is an elite group of people that rule the world that are shape-shifting lizards. And it's been well documented over the years. People who believe this claim that you can tell who is a reptile because they don't sweat. Because of course, either do reptiles. Juliette Bryant, one of Epstein's victims and survivors, claims that her and other victims watched Epstein and his colleagues shapeshift into a lizard, and she even drew a picture of it. Which brings us back to Peter Thiel, who recently has been in the news for having a bunch of business dealings with Epstein. Well, people might say, well, there's so many videos of him sweating, so this can't be true. But I went back and I watched all of those interviews, and there's not one instance where a bead of sweat falls from his head. It looks more like he's wearing an oily lotion because maybe his skin's so dry, if you know what I mean. This is probably just a crazy coincidence, but I'm curious, does your name spell anything out? Because mine certainly doesn't. As always, I want to hear what you think about all of this down below.
She raises a really good point. We always see him on video or giving interviews sweating, but at the same time, it doesn't really look like he's sweating. He's not dripping any sweat or beads of sweat. He's just very, very oily. In this next video from JVDS72, this is something I had spoken about previously months ago on my other channel, Minutes of Horror, about how doctors, hospitals, they are fully aware that people are alive, yet they still take them to go have their organs harvested because they put down that they are a donor.
So remember that conspiracy theory where it was saying if you have organ donor on your card and you get into an accident, hospitals will either let you die or actually actively try to kill you to get your organs? Well, it's no longer a conspiracy theory. It has just been confirmed by a new article in the New York Times, and it says a push for more organ transplants is putting donors at risk. People across the United States have endured rushed or premature attempts to remove their organs. Some were gasping, crying, or showing other signs of life. I'm a little speechless because this is real. This is a real thing that's happened. They have so many different examples of this within this article. I read it for free because somebody posted a gifted version on Twitter. So go there to find this article if you want to read the whole thing. It's really disturbing and this is insane. I'm going to share this story first. In 2022, when she was 38 and homeless, Miss Gallegos, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, was hospitalized and went into a coma. Doctors at Presbyterian Hospital in Albuquerque told her family she would never recover. Her relatives agreed to donation, but as preparations began, they saw tears in her eyes. Their concerns were dismissed, according to interviews with the family and 8 hospital workers. Donation coordinators said the tears were a reflex. On the day of the planned donation, Miss Gallegos was taken to a pre-surgery room where her 2 sisters held her hands. A doctor arrived to withdraw life support. Then a sister announced she had seen her move. The doctor asked her to blink her eyes and she complied. The room erupted in gasps. Still, hospital workers said the procurement organization wanted to move forward. The coordinator said it was just reflexes and suggested morphine to reduce movements. The hospital refused. Instead, workers brought her back to her room and she made a full recovery. And she's still alive today. Thank goodness. And if that doesn't scare you, because clearly, this has happened to a lot of people, and of course, we're not going to know that because they're not alive anymore. This is like so sickening and so disturbing to me that we would prioritize getting somebody's organ rather than saving somebody's life. Actually, many years ago, I removed organ donor from my license. If you're concerned about that, I would recommend doing the same thing. Having that organ donor label really overrides everything. It overrides even your family. Even if your family says like they don't want to do that,
Now, the thing is, organ transplants do save a lot of lives, and news like this will turn a lot of people away from being an organ donor, or at least be listed as an organ donor. But we do know we live in a world where money trumps everything, even morals, and illegal organ harvesting is very real, and it's a big business. Certain corrupt organizations have found a way to basically legally harvest organs by telling family members, oh, your family member here that you see crying, that you see moving, that's just a reflex. We're going to go ahead and take them anyway to harvest their organs. And most of these families, they don't know any better. They just listen to the staff. About 9 months ago, I made this video here on Minutes of Horror. This man in Kentucky, the hospital staff, doctors, and so forth said that this man was brain dead. So they took him to the back to have his organs harvested, but the family members, they saw him move, but still thought nothing of it. The staff once again said, oh, it's just reflexes, and when they took him to get his organs tested, the staff there also saw him move and thought nothing of it. Matter of fact, they saw vitals and still thought nothing of it. It wasn't until he was actually taken to the room to have his organs taken did the nurse see him start to cry. And when she saw him start to cry, she said, enough's enough, and she called another doctor, and come to find out, he was still alive and not brain dead, and he made a full recovery. This is happening to the point that it's now getting big media attention, and I really don't know what they're going to do because, again, there's a lot of money in this. This is big business.
I've asked you not to take my son. Also, I swear my son would have not wanted his organs removed. All of us, all parents, or here. We said no. I am
Your son
I
signed
need
up
them
his
to come in
driver's
and
license
see. My
to be
son
an
did not
organ
want
donor,
that. I
and we
signed when it was the
appreciate
money.
the gifts that
It's
he's
not.
giving.
He's not
That's
giving
all I
them.
have to say.
Yeah.
In this next creepy video, this individual, Kat McCullough, she talks about what she's seen in the news about how we're going to start seeing drones start modifying the weather, start seeding the clouds.
TikTok took down my part 2 video about weather modification. I'm just going to tell y'all straight out. So did y'all know that allegedly, possibly there's been discussion of a tri-state, the first of its kind, weather mod project, and that's between Idaho, Utah, and Wyoming, which Wyoming doesn't have a very large population, if you didn't know that. There's actually one area where they're testing this out using drones, which is also another first. So supposedly, because it's an orographic region, which means that it's mountainous areas, so like in the winter they cloud seed, they take advantage of the weather, and they claim that, according to the sources and the publications talking about these projects, claim that last year was more difficult for them to seed and do the project than it had been in other years. Keyword other years, 23, 2022, 2021, you know, makes you want to go back and look at those. So pretty much they rely on the snow melt because they need to keep their water reservoirs topped off. If you really want to follow this, I would recommend go look into the water districts. And that's what my video is talking about. It went into talking about dynamic seeding. This is all alleged. The project that I just mentioned was from cloud seeding. But for the drone seeding, they can only do that, I think it is in one part because the FAA only granted them. It's an area called Big Bear. Did research because they were looking at the spillover, and this is what my video was about too. They took down. They found that in these locations, because you have the jet stream, it's a little bit different in a little different places than Texas, but Kerr County is an interesting spot because it just happens to be at the receiving end of a couple different types of wind, some cold and some very warm winds, which that's another discussion. Projects that were for the orographic areas, the mountainous regions, they found that there were spillovers and that there was an intense increase in precipitation, and they noticed that it was either to the right or the adjacent right, and sometimes these spillovers went up to 100 miles away from the cloud, from the location of the cloud that they seeded. It's just overall things that should be discussed because the general public doesn't even know that this stuff is happening. Hell, I only found out last week that it was going back to the water districts. Remember, I had collected these articles. It was from like back in the 90s where I live, and there was these groups that were trying to buy out the water reservoirs.
Seeing this video now truly makes me wonder what those drones were really doing that were seen first in New Jersey and then other states, those unidentified drones. But in any case, thank you so much for watching. If you like this channel and you want to see more, please subscribe. If you're already subscribed, please like, as any engagement does help the channel grow. Once again, thank you so much for your support.